Thank you for joining me on the Voice of Job Seekers, Mark. And if you want to know more about me, want to know more about the podcasts and the blog and the videos I do, you can go to voiceofjobseeker.com. This week, I shouldn't say this week because I actually just got through doing one. Today, my friend Kevin Turner has joined me, where we've known each other for some years now. And he is one of the most he documents every change on LinkedIn. If you want to know what went on this past year, he's the man. And we're going to talk a little bit about really LinkedIn personal branding strategies for 2024. So I know that's going to light some people up. And he's promised me not to give the fluff that everybody else gives. I'm looking forward to hearing you. How are you, Kevin?
Mark Anthony, I'm fantastic. I appreciate being here with you. I always enjoy it, and I learn much in the process as well. So, very excited for that. And I'm not really big on giving the basics, right? I think
Yeah,
everybody does. And you
right,
and I aren't about the basics either. We're about
right,
what is that little extra piece that takes you way beyond, right? The competitive advantage.
right.
That's what I wanted to talk about today. We do all that mundane stuff. I track every single new LinkedIn feature, right, that comes out. We're now at 153 just for
Right.
2023. It's absurd. We've had maybe 10 features fail and die and all this kind of stuff. We track it. It is so intense these days that
It is.
even when somebody says, "Hey, is that new?" I have to go back to my main article and sometimes do a word search and go, wait, we saw that in April, right?
Yeah.
Because of the
Yeah.
whole process. And it is incredible. I don't know how the production team at LinkedIn is even keeping up with it. And what's fascinating, I think, is there are many people inside LinkedIn who go to that list to find out what's going on inside their own organization. And that's a little scary to me.
Oh,
You shouldn't have
and
to come to anybody else.
that's great. And I think you're right. There are a lot of little changes. Sometimes we don't need to know. And the things that we should have known had, if we're desiring a little bit more engagement, a little bit more visibility, because for job seekers, that's really the name of the game, right? Engagement and visibility. Yeah. So, but we all want that as part of using LinkedIn because we don't want to think that we're talking to the cloud, so to speak, even though we can argue we are anyway. But yeah, I'm just so interested in your perspective about some of the things that you may have seen in 2023 that you think are going to really help job seekers make a difference in their LinkedIn efforts for 2024. Number one, what's your first one? It may not be the most important one, but what's the first one
Well,
that you have for
and something
us?
I did want to jump into, and that is because of the size of LinkedIn is now, right? They just announced
All
we're
right.
at 1 billion members. I don't know how many all are those are real people, but we're at 1 billion memberships, right? And so to me, that's fascinating because we
Right.
have to make a choice. Do we want to be one in a billion or number one in a
Mhm.
billion?
Right.
And because of the way and the size of LinkedIn is, things have to fit into categories to be found. That
Mhm.
sounds strange, but it's like a library, right? If you go to the library, there's the Dewey Decimal System. If you made up your own numbers, put it on a book, threw it on a shelf, nobody would be able to find it. You have to respect what we call market value filters on LinkedIn. And that's probably the first thing I want to talk about. And that basically goes throughout your profile. As you're putting that profile together, there's certain areas that ask you for information. And as you're typing, you'll notice a drop down box appears. And in that drop down box is what LinkedIn says is our filter category. If you keep typing and you make up your own, you are now outside of the categories. You are invisible.
Mhm.
If you ran a store and I sent you a product and the product didn't fit in any of your categories, it wouldn't get the eye level shelf, right? It wouldn't get the end cap, wouldn't get the register. It would be back in the back of the room on that dusty, dirty shelf right next to the bathroom, right? The
Sure.
others category. Too many people right now are putting themselves in the others category. So it doesn't matter what your brand says, how strong it is, if they can't find you. So
Mhm.
go through that profile and building it out. any box, any slot, and the slots start with location, they start with industry, both location and industry database has been updated in the last 6 months. So if you selected those before 6 months before, they may be completely incorrect. The town might not exist. The industry might be set a different way, right?
Right.
An and signal instead of and spelled out. You want to go back and make sure those are right. And the bigger components get down into things like titles, right? If
Mhm.
we learned this many years back, we did the transition for the head of HR for Yahoo. And his title, internet based company, was Cloud9 Navigator. He had in that little line, right? There was no
Right.
drop down box for that. We changed it to Chief Human Resource Officer. And within weeks, he was grabbed up by recruiters because now they knew and they understood who he was. And his branding on his page
For
was
those who
great.
don't, yeah, I would just don't find their industry in those drop down boxes. What should they do?
You've got to find something close to it. And there
Okay.
is a cross reference file that builds up. There's always a bigger category, right? That might build down to
Okay. Right.
to an industry, and you want to build up. It's not X2. They do post it on Microsoft for LinkedIn, and there's a way to
Mhm.
trail it back to the right place. But you also want to think about when LinkedIn sets your industry, they're going to set it on the company you're in. So if you work
Okay.
for, let's say, Lexus, your industry becomes automotive, but maybe your position is HR. Are
Right.
you in the human resource industry or are you in the automotive industry? That's sometimes when you go in and manually set it up where this is the industry I'm in overall. Does that make
Right.
sense?
Yeah.
Takes a little bit of work sometimes.
Yeah, and I think some people do have that quandary where it is maybe both human resource within the auto industry. You think in terms of who you want to be recruited by, that may be a different answer, or who you want to be contacted by. And for the
Absolutely.
reason, that's where you can make a decision there, which one would be.
And
That's a great point. And I think even when you dig in it, that's an important box to be checked if you're talking about visibility.
yeah.
You want to
And
be
you think
seen
about it,
by
it's
the right people.
yeah. Anytime we do our own branding, we have to know first of all where we want to go. And we got to know who's going to get us there. So making those selections, you always want to be thinking about that. And what moves me forward? Who's going to be there to be able to do that? And you want to be able to align those things so that they start to work for you.
Right.
One of the biggest market value filters I find is causing people problems in job seeking is in the education area. They change the degrees. It used to be in brackets. Now it's a dash, like MBA or dash BA or GED. It's a dash. They changed that. They didn't tell anybody.
Mm,
So if you select
okay.
that degree a couple of years back or a year back, it's probably not accurate anymore. And if you think about this billion membership, we're not
Right.
LinkedIn's customer. We are LinkedIn's product. They sell us. It's
Mm,
M to M, member to member, right? That's why we have the 6 degrees of separation. We're cut off at the third, so they could sell us to the other three or the other three to us. That's the business model of LinkedIn. As long as you know that, you can make these kind of adjustments in that process. But to me, that's something people don't think about that. But that degree piece, there is one other component in there, and it people are having problems with ageism, right? I'm getting older. They're noticing I'm getting older.
we all are. Yeah.
Maybe I don't want them to know I'm getting older, right? The
Mhm.
concept was, okay, I can put in my degree. Now I've got it right. And I'm going to change the date
Mhm.
because they didn't have cars back then. So I'm going to change that graduation date, or I'm going to take the graduation date out altogether. Believe it or not, on LinkedIn, if you do that, then you are not going to be provided top rank into these recruiter searches that require a degree.
Here's a point to think about as well is that degrees are changing their types every few years now. In other words, in certain tech industries, a degree in is not did something in 1999 and called it management information systems. You're going to find that on LinkedIn. That's not a choice.
No.
So therefore, you have to find something a little bit more updated, make more sense. But it was 3 or 4 years ago, and you had that degree on it. The school might call it something else now.
Mhm.
Or so someone would really have to be really aware about that change in order to, but how many people are acutely aware of how their industry are changing that fast?
Probably
And
not
exactly
many.
what you said.
Yeah.
Right,
But
right, which is a
LinkedIn's
good
left the
place to start.
breadcrumbs. They've left the
Right.
breadcrumbs. When you go back down there and you start typing in bachelor, right, or something like that, it's going to give a drop down box of what that school says it issued and it agreed with LinkedIn. It issues these titles. Then you got to pick the one that's closest match.
The other half of it is there are schools that are slower to respond to what the market actually is as far
Yep.
as the degree. For those who are getting ready to choose something that y- let's say the market has changed, but it is the same training, how do you mitigate that?
I think in general that from what I've seen with Recruiter, it's already taking that into consideration. So
Okay. All
if
right.
they're looking for a bachelor's around business, it may have been a BBA now and it was something else then. They're taking that, they're marrying that in the database. So they're
Okay.
giving it activity. The same way LinkedIn has created new market value titles. You could have been a VP of sales. You had to spell it out, vice president of sales in the past to be in the filter. Now you can use VP of sales. LinkedIn's going to marry those two together and say they say the same thing.
Okay.
So they're doing
Fair
that
enough.
within their own data. So if we're working on it, we're getting it as close to right as we can. They're going to figure it
Mhm.
out. If you have to select something that's a little different, let's say that example, Cloud9 Navigator, right? And you said somebody's going to call that company and say, did you have a chief human resource officer? And they're going to say no, unless they
Mhm.
ask, did you have a Cloud9 Navigator, right? That's where in that definition of the position, you could put internally known as the Cloud9 Navigator. That way they see chief human resource officer, Cloud9 Navigator. They know what to ask. Oh, could it have been called? Or did you have a chief human resource officer, Cloud9 Navigator? And they would say yes.
Okay.
And so there's
Okay.
ways of taking that small variance that we have to make to fit in the database, but then clarifying it so that we're telling the whole truth.
Good deal. Good deal. Yeah. I think again the name of the game is engagement and visibility. So let's go on to number two. And I know you've got a hard stop here coming up soon.
To
So
me,
we're
it's
gonna
really about getting
let's
on the
go.
radar. You need to know who do you want to have notice you, what companies, what individuals.
Mhm.
That's really important to do that. Build that list out, decide what it is. With companies, you want to go to that company page, you want to follow the company, right? You want to
Right.
ring the bell. Give me all the posts you make, company. I want that, right? Then you want to go to the About tab and scroll down that About tab. And if it has a small section that says express your interest in working for our company, click it. Because what that does is it then tells the recruiters at that company that you would be interested in working for them in the future. So
Mhm.
they're starting to consider you, right? That component is real important to get done, but it also has a time value, right? All data does.
Okay.
If you're
Right.
buying a steak, right, and you've got the choice of one that's 4 weeks old and one that is just freshly cut, which one has more value?
Mhm.
Right? The freshly cut one, right? You wanna
Fresh,
want
right?
that nice
Absolutely. Once
juicy
fresh
filet
at
mignon,
one.
not the one that looks like it's going green.
Absolutely.
LinkedIn does the same thing. When we make decisions like this, like I'm interested, how long are you interested? You're interested on day one, really interested. On day 120, maybe not so much. Maybe you forgot you even had it turned on, right? So there's a
Right.
time value of data. One of the things that you need to do in that situation, you wanna go in and in your privacy settings, there is one button you can toggle. So let's say you told 50 companies you're interested in working for
Mhm.
them, instead of going back and trying to find each one every month, right? You go into that privacy setting and it is, trying to think what it is, data privacy. So you get privacy and settings, data privacy, and then you go to signal interest. And there's a little toggle button. You turn it
Mhm.
off, you get a little pop up that says it's turned off, turn it back on. Your time value now, you're the fresh filet mignon, and that's all they see.
Gotcha.
So when a
Yeah.
recruiter brings up their profile, what they're seeing is you're interested today, not 120 days ago. So
Mhm.
always think about that time to value of data. LinkedIn is a business. It's not a social good site, right?
Right.
It's selling us as members. I think Recruiter is almost 60% of its $17 billion revenue. It's the largest customer it has. So everything on LinkedIn fits within what the recruiter wants. And
Right.
that's,
And every
driver.
and every click is counted somewhere or somehow.
Absolutely.
And I think people, if they think they didn't engage or they wonder why, they may see something in their feed. It's because at one time or another they clicked on it. It may not be for that exact reason, but at least your curiosity
Yeah.
leads to data at minimal.
And that kind of goes back to getting on the radar, right? We've
Right.
got these companies, we know how to do that. That's pretty simple. The individuals, we're going to start following them, right? You go to their profile, you hit follow. Don't try to connect on day one. Build a relationship, right? Start
Right.
commenting, start following them, adding value, supporting what they're doing. They will take notice. Often executives that are out there posting, they're as scared as we are. I've never done this before. Now I got this guy, Mark Anthony Dyson, and he's commenting and he's making me look good. I like this guy.
Yeah.
When it
Yeah.
comes time to find someone to do what they need to do, you're going to be up the top choice. So you want to make sure that you're on the radar in that sense of getting that established, getting that moving forward. But then you want to take a little further as you develop that. You really want to start creating the relationship. If you get far enough down the road and you've commented back and forth, that's when you can invite them, right? I've really enjoyed talking with you. We've had some great conversations. I'd like to connect networks. If I can ever help you, let me know. Great way to open it up, bring in some things that you've done so you personalize it and create that contact. One of the things that a recruiter sees on the other side when they bring up your profile, when they're looking for candidates, they're going to see a couple of things. One, do they follow the company? Oh, yes, he does. And he said he was interested, right? The next one is,
Mhm.
does he know anybody in the company? Oh, yeah. He knows some pretty important people in the company and he knows a lot of them. If I know a lot of people in a company, HR is going to look at that and say, you know what? Kevin's lower risk because he knows 25 people in our company. So he has an insight, right? He feels comfortable. If he's approaching us, he might be the right person because he has that relationship. So they see those components coming up. And if we're not activating them, we're leaving ourselves out. That's again part of getting on that radar and building those relationships and letting that recruiter and the decision makers see that we have those relationships in that process.
We're talking with Kevin Turner about how to use LinkedIn for branding in 2024. So we get into some really good stuff, not the fluffy stuff that you see on most timelines, but these are two very critical points that he's brought up so far. What's your third one, Kevin?
Third one, there's a lot of opportunity with getting out in front lives and audio events, right? It has
Yes.
been basically LinkedIn's gift to say you can run your own TV or radio station.
Mhm.
How do you do that, right? You'd have to spend millions. To do that. They're giving you that opportunity. It takes a lot of work. And I know, Mark Anthony, you spend a lot of time on this. Not everybody has
Yeah.
that time or expertise, but anybody can be
Mhm.
a guest if they establish their thought leadership and they establish relationships with the right people. They don't ask to be on a show, they earn their way there, right? But getting on that, again,
Right.
is getting on that radar, getting in there and establishing themselves as somebody of that knowledge point, right? Same thing
Mhm.
during these lives. Most people don't know during a live or an audio event, if somebody says I'm attending, whether they show up or not. If they say I'm attending and you're attending, whether you show up or not, crazy enough, you can go to the
Right.
networking tab and you can contact anybody in that networking tab that said they were coming to the event. Nowhere else on LinkedIn
Wow.
can you do that. Here you can do it and it circumvents all that 3 degrees of separation. You can get to the 6th degree and not have to pay for it because you're a part of this
Mm.
little network, right? A lot of people don't know that.
Oh, I didn't know
Oh,
that
it's
was
it's
that's brand
huge.
new. Actually, all three you told me. It's huge. And you think about it, if you're a job seeker, let's say you are actively searching for a job. One of the biggest shows on LinkedIn is Andrew Siemens Get Hired Live. Now, I was a guest on that show over 3 years ago now. At that time, early on, what was early on? It had been on for about 6 months at that particular time. The interaction within those groups, the commenting, the recruiters, the was fantastic. Now it's 10 times that.
Oh,
So you're talking about what to make a connection during those particular times, following those steps you just laid out, you're going to get more visibility probably than you've ever had on LinkedIn ever
absolutely.
before.
Now, audio,
And you weren't even a guest. You weren't even a guest. You were a
yeah, you're just
participator, but
watching.
because you made
You're a
yourself
listener.
available.
I don't use the word lurker. I
Right.
don't like that. You're a listener. You're a learner. You're there. N-
Right.
Now you're going to take it from just being there to the next step. That means that whoever was the speaker, there was an audio event or a live event, you can actually communicate directly with that speaker. You can say, you know what, I really liked all these things you said. And you know what, I've got this and this. If I can help you in any way, let's connect. Right. So you got
Yeah.
that
Yeah.
opportunity. And I think that's really cool. Where
Now, is it within that time frame that particular live is going on, or do they have that access
technically before,
continually?
during, and after. So if you went to an
Okay.
audio event a year ago, you can go back to that audio event, look it up,
Oh,
find the networking tab, and ask Richard Branson to give you a call. Right. He's gonna get
right.
the message. Whether he gives you a
Wow.
call or not, I don't know, but he's gonna get that message.
Right.
No,
But the issue is, again, you want the interaction is the most important element of anything that
yeah.
you can possibly do on LinkedIn because
Now
that's how
I
you
was a
want people
beta
to find
tester
you.
for audio events, and I've run
Uh-huh.
quite a few. I've actually seen people hired through audio events because the CEOs were of the company, they were the main speakers, but then that person raised their hand, got on the stage, made something intelligent come out. The nice thing about
Right.
audio events is it's a solid picture of you in your best hair day. And you
Yeah.
don't have to worry about it. But if you get in there and you do that, people take notice on the other end. Now,
Right.
one, and it's maybe it's a trick, I don't know, but it's one of the things I've done since day one in audio events. If somebody's speaking on LinkedIn, they'll have a little green circle around them, right? I usually expand my screen. I'll take a picture of the event information, all the people speaking, right? I'll take one picture while they're speaking. I can click on their picture and send them a message, no matter what level they are. I can send a message. What I'm going to send them is a picture of them speaking and just saying, you know what, this was brilliant. I really enjoyed this. I know that you were so captured in doing this. You probably didn't get a picture of yourself presenting.
Mhm.
So here's my gift.
Or if you have the later iPhone version, what you could do, you could record the session
Oh, yeah,
and send it to the speaker
absolutely.
so that they can have it because the speaker can't record himself unless he uses external devices. Most people
Yeah,
won't have that. They're just recording where they are. If you want to get on their
I love
side,
that.
that's about and that's a
Well,
tool that I
what
wish more
better
people
way to
would
start a
have.
relationship than with a gift,
Absolutely.
right?
Somebody says, wait a second, you record the hour that I was on, and you don't even necessarily use the iPhone, but the iPhone has the screen capture where you can
Oh,
record
yeah.
right then on the spot. And then all you do is just, you can either upload it to somewhere, to a file somewhere, or just send it to them. And there's a lot of ways to send because it is a
Yeah.
large file, but audio files is not as bad as like video. Try to send them the audio part, which is a very small file. so that way they can have it for whatever use they may have,
Oh
because
yeah.
people want to also recreate the content or remember what they said
Yeah.
in that session because it could be useful
Well,
for the
here's what I've
content in the
seen.
future.
Majority of them use it the same day or the next day. And they
Yeah,
write up about they were in this audio room and Mark Anthony Dyson sent me the audio or sent me the picture of me presenting. So I wanted to thank him as
right,
well. Now you're
right, yeah,
attached to
because that's
somebody who is
useful
at
to
speaker level, right? And again, the
right,
relationship is building. So sometimes small gifts like that can have huge results because they
absolutely.
get out of that thing and they go, I should have grabbed something from there to share the next day in my post, and I didn't. And now Mark Anthony Dyson rides in on his horse and gives me this gift, right? And I've got
Right, right.
content.
And you owe that, and the speaker will owe that person feel obligated in some kind of way
Absolutely.
to reciprocate, even if it's the smallest
Yeah.
way, they feel that way. And there you now have a relationship, is the which is
That's the
the
radar you
important
want to be
part,
on.
so to speak.
Right.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I know we want to hit 4 and 5 before you gotta take off here. So what's number
I
4?
think number 4 is find your give back. What can you give to your community? What can you do?
Believe it.
I do 2 things that are a little unusual. I track all the new LinkedIn features. I have
Mhm.
people who come to me and say, "Hey, I found one." I give them credit, right? We put it all out there and we
Right.
open that up to everybody. That's my give back. My other give back is I have a
Mhm.
YouTube channel and I tell people things that most trainers charge big dollars for. I'm going to tell them how to use LinkedIn in the right way. It's all there free. Those are my give backs. And they always, anytime you
Mhm.
give, there's that kind of tenfold return. It's not a reason to
Sure.
give, but you do it and it does come back to you. And to me,
Yeah.
find that give back that you can do that helps people that they always remember you
Right.
because it's always amazing where kind of this grace comes from, right? They remember you helped them in X, Y, and Z, and they're like, you know what? I just talked to my neighbor. He's hiring for this. I'm going to put you guys together. Boom. Right.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
all of that comes
That
from
works.
something as simple as creating what is that give back? If it supports your brand, that's best, right? So it
Right.
builds it. And I think that's really important to do. So find out what that is. I know John Esperian's got a great Friday shout. He talks
Mhm.
about other people. He introduces you to them. He tells you why they're special. He's now doing it with a little bit of video clip. That's his give back to community.
Yeah.
And people love it. And
Yep.
we all
Yep.
show up every
And
Friday to see who's next. Right.
it's so powerful how people can remember you for years when you've given it gift to anyone. Yeah. And it's not just that one time. And if you get most people remember for years. I remember there a couple of times somebody I really wanted to meet and I gave them something and they said at time was okay. Years later, they come a calling. I need this. I want to feature you here. I want to
Yeah.
give this to you because I remember. And that's again the visibility, the engagement makes it easier for you to find more opportunities. It doesn't answer all the questions, but
Mhm.
it gives you a chance.
No, absolutely. It's seeding, right?
Yeah,
You're seeding.
absolutely.
Some things grow really fast and you get the fruit immediately. Other things are 20 years down the road, but it always comes back.
It's always better to play the long game.
Yep.
What's your last one, number 5? Then I know you've got a jet.
Last one, I think it's just overall get involved in LinkedIn.
Mhm.
Back to that concept of time value, right? Of data. The more involved we are, the more LinkedIn says the profile's right, the information's correct. I can sell Mark Anthony Dyson as a good product, right?
Mhm.
So get involved in many different ways within LinkedIn. And I'm going to give you a quick secret. When we were talking about commenting earlier, right?
Mhm.
One of the best things you can do when you go into your search box and you bring up the posts, right, as one of your searches, you click
Right,
post, the next box, there's going to be a date box. Pick the last 24 hours
right.
And then there's ones by members. Pick those you want to see their posts, right? So you're going to see those members 24 hours, their posts. But then the next thing you want to do is you want to bookmark that in your browser. So every time you come back, you click on your bookmark and it gives you just that. And interesting enough, it will give you a feed that is your feed that you asked for, no commercials, straight on. It's using the
Mhm.
LinkedIn system, so there's no restriction issues and you're in control. I've got a great YouTube video on it. It's
Right.
favorite content creator, but you can do that for companies. You can do it for job postings, anything you can search for on LinkedIn. You can then create a bookmark for. I've got some of my bookmarks. I've got about 160 experts in this one area. I've
Mhm.
got 15 people inside LinkedIn that I like when they post. And I've got all these little bookmarks and I can click them. I'm doing it every 24 hours. I'm not getting any of that junk, any of the promotional stuff, any of the,
Great.
I'm getting right in there. And that allows me again to get on their radar. And that's the one thing that we've got to do if we want to just refine the brand and make sure everybody understands it.
Now, the difference between that and the saved tab is what?
The save tab, the only time you can do that is in a job search. This is, let's say you want to find all the executives that you want to follow and comment behind. You
Uh-huh.
build that list, post, time frame, last 24 hours is the way I do it. You can do it last couple of days,
Right.
last couple of weeks. Then you put the member's name in there, right?
Mhm.
And then when you see that results, that's when you bookmark it. And then every day when you open that one bookmark, that's all it's going to be in there. And if you did it for the last 24 hours, it's only going to be the fresh stuff.
Mhm.
So if you
Yeah.
really want to get on people's radar, get on companies' radar, even keep up with the new activity, that's a huge bonus. And again, you don't get bogged down in the ads and everything else.
Yeah. I find that when I search my name on LinkedIn, it's very interesting because you think that by tagging that you would get the notification that you're tagged. Most of the time lately, you don't.
Yep.
You really don't get the notification. So it's good to search your name, then also press post. Or if maybe you've recently done a video to see if that video shows up elsewhere. And then, of
Absolutely.
course, then you press the time, gives you the last 24 hours
Yep.
or
And
with the choice of
bookmark it.
time. And then you can see something you did. There's been several times I was surprised that I was mentioned. I was never tagged in any way. And some people just don't tag you. But if you search your name, it will definitely show up like it would
Oh,
on
yeah.
Google.
And
And
tags
that way,
are messed up on LinkedIn right now.
yeah, they
They
really
work
are.
50% of the time, if that. And if you edit anything, they go away and you got to go back and re-edit them again. They're just a complete mess. I don't know why. I think it's
Yeah.
just spaghetti wiring over there, right?
And that's a big part of branding, right? Is knowing what your reputation actually is
Absolutely.
on LinkedIn on that specific. You should do it on all platforms, but LinkedIn is particularly interesting because you'll find things is if you've never done it before, then you should go back into time and maybe even a year, 2 or 3 to see what has shown. I found some very interesting things. There's a couple of times I found that I was featured on LinkedIn News without knowing or being notified I was on LinkedIn News.
That's nice.
So yeah, that was
Right.
nice, but it was just really weird.
And it's also a good way to catch people who are plagiarizing you. Because if you get enough
Yes.
momentum up, if you're on the radar, people are going to start stealing that stuff.
Yeah,
And
they are. But
yeah,
what's interesting, but what I've done in the last year and a half is that I've taken like excerpts from my articles, not
mhm,
necessarily written from my blogs, but from my clients' blogs, and I posted it. I'm the author, so I post it on LinkedIn. I don't necessarily give the attribution because they're my words, and
yeah,
I put it on there. So I found people actually plagiarizing the company's property as opposed to just say that it was something original. I originally wrote it, but it just posted somewhere else and I've already gotten paid for it. But
I hear.
somebody plagiarized themselves. The companies see that and say, wait a second, that was written on our site. You stole it from our site, thinking that they stole it from me, which they did, but they stole it from the site. So
Well,
that was
it is
that was
interesting
kind
on
of fun.
LinkedIn. all the content that you create on LinkedIn is time stamped and recorded. So if
Yes.
you're the first person to use it on LinkedIn and
Yes.
somebody else uses it, all LinkedIn does is they look at the timestamp and they'll throw
Yeah.
the other person out. They'll take that content away. They'll restrict that individual, say, don't do that ever again because we know this is the original because here's the timestamp.
Yes.
Getting your content on LinkedIn as fast as you can is critical because they're time stamping that stuff, keeping that data forever.
And you're smart too. You would also take that, you take that LinkedIn post, which now is you can write 300 or 400 words on. That's a whole
Mhm.
blog post that you could put on your own website if you have one,
Absolutely.
or somewhere else where it's you have the original timestamp there, but you also could have the original timestamp from the site that you put it on. Because every site that you write an article or a blog post or even a thought, there's a time on it. It may not necessarily show in the article, but it could be proven because it's already timestamped
Oh,
on the
yeah.
web. So great stuff, Kevin. Thank you very much. I'm glad
Absolutely. Enjoyed.
this. I'm glad to have you back again and every few months to talk about this.
Go on. I'd love to. There's
You
so
didn't
much. There's
you
almost
didn't
almost
you
too
didn't mess
much, right?
around. Yeah. Don't be surprised from this particular podcast or when I put it on the podcast feed that you'll get other invitations to do the same thing. Just remember, we did it here first. But
Yeah. We
anyway,
got the timestamp right here.
that's right. Absolutely. Thank you very much. How do people find you if they want to
Kevin
find?
D. Turner on LinkedIn, easiest place. Kevin D. Turner on YouTube, two quickest places. You'll get right to me. I use that D because there is a famous football player, Kevin
Yes, there
Turner.
is.
There's
Yes.
a Microsoft C-level
I
Kevin
remember
Turner.
the
There was a
football player.
Walmart lawyer named Kevin Turner. Actually, I had a friend who was on the law staff, and I used to call over there, and they'd say, "Who is it?" I'd say, it was Kevin Turner, and they would all panic. And he said, "Don't do it anymore." He said, "Use your middle initial. I've been using it for years, and it helps define. It makes me unique. So look for Kevin D. Turner, and you'll find me."
Which is another branding lesson. And actually, before I started posting online, that was the first thing I did. I looked at Mark Dyson.
Yeah.
I never used Mark Anthony in real life. I'll use Mark Anthony on the web. And that's the way people find me. Real easy to find. And that's another good branding tip, a bonus, by the way. Google yourself, find yourself offline first on the web, and nobody find a way to distinct yourself
Yeah.
and
Absolutely.
then do it. Thank you very much, Kevin. Thank you very much for the rest of you. Thank you for joining Voice of Job Seekers. Peace and valued love. Have a good day.
Take care.
All right,
Thanks.
Kevin. Thanks a whole bunch, man. I know you got to
Absolutely. I
go.
had fun.
All right. Talk to you soon.
See ya.
All
Bye
right.
bye.
Bye.